Hello, dear students, and welcome back to the social studies classes for class 8th. So, students, today we are going to start the second chapter of history, that is, from trade to political supremacy, colonial rule in India. Students, in the first chapter, we learned about various things like how Britishers came to India, and we have seen Britishers in the form of traders in the first chapter. So now you must already know that many foreign invaders came to India, lured by its rich culture and heritage, and many were successful also to establish their reign over its various regions. But it was only British that established its sovereignty over our motherland in her entirety. They came to us under the disguise of being traders, but they turned out to be like those guests who came to our home but never left. So, during that time, there was a huge demand of cotton, silk, spices, and other raw materials in the European market, as we have learned about the Industrial Revolution, and there were these all raw materials or whether the market were available in India in abundance. So initially when these trading companies, all the trading companies from Europe came as traders, they could make so that they could make a lot of profit out of us in foreign market. And so this was overall that earlier all the European powers that came to India, they only came India or yeah, came to India for the purpose of trading only, for luring their market in foreign countries, in European countries. So let's have a look what we are going to learn in this chapter. So the content is mercantilism, the Portuguese, the Britishers, journey of EEIC, that is English East India Company, the Dutch, the French, power struggle, and Carnatic wars. So students, let's start with the first. Firstly, you have to know that all the European companies or all the European countries that came to India for the purpose of trading, they came through sea voyage. Now, what is the meaning of sea voyage? Voyage means a long journey that especially took through sea with the help of boat or ships. So sea voyage means that is only a long journey to a foreign or distant place, especially by sea, by the way of sea. So basically at that time the European countries that came to India for the trading purposes, they all followed the way or the route through sea. Now, the topic mercantilism. So, students, as we have learned in the previous chapter about the Industrial Revolution, that revolution took place in the field of marketing and production of goods. How new machineries came into existence or new machineries started building, and the condition of trade was continuously improving at that time. So, mercantilism was a very famous economic theory of trading, very famous economic theory that was at that time continued in Europe from 16th to 18th century. So, that was only according to this theory. This was the saying that the companies or the trading companies make profit by selling goods at higher prices and by purchasing it at cheap rates. That means a company should gain more and more profit to become, yeah, to earn prosperity. That was the logic at the time, and it was believed that the prosperity of a country is totally depending upon its production. So a company should produce more than its consumption. Every company should produce, or a country, or the companies of a country should produce more in comparison to their consumption. Now, if we will produce more in comparison to the consumption, what we will do? Now we will start exporting things to other countries because we are producing more. So basically the logic was that a company should produce more in comparison to its consumption, and a company should export more in comparison to import. So all of you are knowing this. What is the meaning of export and import? Export means to sell your goods to the foreign countries, and import means to buy goods from the foreign countries. So this was the concept of export and import, and mercantilism was a theory totally depend upon profit. How a country or the companies make profit at that time. So this was only the theory of mercantilism, and according to this theory, many European countries started traveling to different areas or to distant lands for earning more and more profits. Now, the next is, you can see, now basically as you can see that this is the area of Europe, and since mercantilism was an economic theory that was flourished at that time during Europe only, so that is why these Europe or the countries of Europe started trading to basically to the east side, to the eastern countries, and some in the west side also. So this was only the mercantilism theory. The countries of Europe started moving to distant land for earning more and more profit in search of markets, and in search of markets for selling their goods also, and in search of markets for getting their raw materials also. So this was all. Now we will see the next one, that is, you can see the European countries that came India for trade. We will see that what was the basic European countries that came to India for the trading purpose. So in that, basically we are having Netherlands. The people those who belong to Netherlands were the Dutch. They were known as Dutch. Now nextly we will see United Kingdom. About these were the Britishers. The France, that were the French, and Portugal, that was the Portuguese. So these were the four trading companies that came to India during 17th, or we can say that during 16th to 18th century. Now next we are going to see about, firstly firstly the Portuguese came to India. The Portuguese means, in 1498, Portuguese navigator, you have listened about him also, or the Portuguese navigator or explorer Vasco da Gama came to India. So Portuguese were the first European who discovered the sea route to India. In 1498, the Portuguese explorer or the navigator, that was Vasco da Gama, discovered the new sea route that linked India to Europe via the Cape of Good Hope. You can see here that how Vasco da Gama came to India with the route of this one. From he started from the capital of Portugal, that was Lisbon, and from here only he came through the way of Africa. This is Cape of Good Hope, and from here only he came to India. And he came to Calicut in India, and he established his port or their ports to Calicut. Now I hope that it is clear to you the way from Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, to India. So Vasco da Gama's expedition involved a fleet of four ships. He came with four ships with a crew of 170 people total. Total 170 people came with Vasco da Gama, and he started from Lisbon, the capital of Portugal at the time, and he started at on 8th July 1497, and he reached to Calicut, India on 20th May 1498. So slowly many Portuguese traders came to India, and they started establishing in South India at the Malabar coast. They reached Calicut, Cochin, Goa, Daman and Diu, etc. So, at last, Goa continued to be occupied by Portuguese. Portuguese, you will see also whenever you will go to Goa, you will see that the culture of Goa is totally different. So basically, Portuguese were able to establish their control over Goa after the independence only till 1968. After 1968 only, Goa became the part of India. So this is only how firstly Portuguese came to India for the purpose of trading, and Vasco da Gama has the credit to search or the sea route to India through Cape of Good Hope. From Europe to India, the sea route, that is Cape of Good Hope. Now, where is Portugal? So basically, Portugal is a country located mostly on the Iberian Peninsula in the southern west of Europe. That we have seen that Portugal is here. This is Portugal. Now, let's have a look. This is the way how they came, and now here we will see that Portuguese centers where they have established their centers, that we will see. So this is Goa. Here they were having the power. This is Diu, and Daman and Dadar and Nagar Haveli, all were under their control only. So these are the places that were under the Portuguese at that time. Now the Britishers. All of you are aware about them because the British were the only powerful country that was able to establish its sovereignty over our motherland in her entirety. They came to us under the distinguish of being traders, but they turned out to be like those guests who never or who came to our home but never left. During that time, there was a huge demand of cotton, silk, spices, and other raw materials in the European market, and these were available in India in abundance. So initially, when they came as traders, they could make a lot of profit out of us in foreign market. And the funny thing is that the small trading company in the name of English East India Company, the British were reluctant in acquiring territories in India. That means with the help of that small East India Company, EEIC, British was successful in establishing or acquiring the territories of India. I know you must be thinking, how did they manage to become the masters of such a vast empire? So, the story goes like this. When the EIC or the English East India Company came to our country, India was under the Mughal rule. Aurangzeb, the last powerful ruler, was at the throne. He established control over very large part of Indian territory, but it's with its center in Delhi. But unfortunately, after his death in 1707, many Mughal governors called the Subedars and big zamindars began asserting their authority, as we have learned in the previous chapter, and establishing regional kingdoms. And they emerged as powerful regional kingdoms in various parts of India. Now, as a result, Delhi could no longer effective as a center. Now, even after the death of the Mughal ruler, continued to be symbolically important. Means after the death of Aurangzeb also, the Mughals were symbolically important at that time, because after a massive rebellion that broke out in the year 1857 against the British rule, that is, when Bahadur Shah Zafar, the then Mughal emperor, was seen as a natural leader. At that time also, during 1857 till 1857, the Mughal Empire was existing in small form or in a diminishing form. But at that time also, Bahadur Shah Zafar, the last ruler of the Mughal Empire, was considered as the natural leader of the revolt of 1857. So, one the revolt was suppressed by the revolt was basically suppressed by the company. Bahadur Shah Zafar was forced to leave the kingdom, and he executed to Rangoon, where he died later, and his two sons were shot in cold blood. So by the Britishers, his son was shot cold blood, and he was executed to Rangoon, whether he died later. Now, students, how that East India Company comes to East, how that East India Company got the power to rule over India or to become the authority of India. Did you know? So, that is year 1600. The East India Company had acquired a charter from the ruler of England, and at that time, the ruler of England was Queen Elizabeth I. The charter granted, what is charter? Charter is like royal farman, something that is given by the authority or the one who is in power. So that charter granted the English East India Company the sole right to make or to trade with East. This meant that now no longer any other trading group in England could compete with the English East India Company. Now, this charter gave right to the English East India Company that from England only English East India Company has the right to trade with eastern countries. All no other trading company was allowed to reduce the competition in India. So Queen Elizabeth believed that only English East India Company will be there from England to for the trading purposes. So with this charter, the company could venture across the oceans looking for new lands for markets to buy goods and raw materials at cheaper prices and to sell their goods manufactured at higher prices. Now, what was the motto of the English East India Company? The main motto was to purchase raw materials from the eastern countries at lower prices and manufacture the goods in their country and then sell the manufactured goods to those countries at higher prices. This was basically the concept of the mercantilism theory. So, the Royal Charter, however, could not prevent other European powers from entering the Eastern market. But this Royal Charter was not able, this I will explain you further. Let's have a look on this topic also, that how Queen Elizabeth passed the Royal Charter to English East India Company and now the journey of EIC in India. So, firstly, Captain William Hawkins, this I have explained in the you in the previous part also. Again, I am explaining. Captain William Hawkins led the first voyage of the EIC to India in 1608. So, the first crew of EIC came to India in 1608, and William Hawkins asked at the then Mughal emperor, who was Jahangir, for some concessions or trade rights in India. Jahangir allowed them for the trade, or he allowed the trade rights to William Hawkins, and due to that only William Hawkins established firstly his factory in Surat in 1613. After that, the English established their factory in South India, that was in Masulipatam in 1611. So, like this only, the English East India Company was able to establish the first two factories in India, one in 1611 and basically the company established in 1608 only. It started in 1613. Subsequently, the first factories in eastern India was established. Slowly, the factory was established in eastern India, Balasore in Odisha in 1633, then in Hooghly in 1651. So, now in 1615, Sir Thomas Roy arrived in India as the ambassador of King James I of England. After that, again in 1615, Sir Thomas Roy also came to India. Now he also received royal farman from Jahangir. Now why he came to India? He want some expedition. It means he wanted to explore in India, to extend their power in India, and this royal farman allowed them to set up their factories in Agra, Broj, Ahmedabad, and some other places. So basically, the first English factories in eastern India were established in Balasore, that is in Odisha, and then in Hooghly, that is in Bengal, in 1651. So after this one, the EIC also began to set up much bigger and strongly fortified operational bases at the presidency towns. Now, EIC was successful for establishing or in establishing three presidencies town from where they rule over India. That was in Madras. We will learn about them later. Madras, Chennai, in now present Chennai is only Madras, Bombay, that is Mumbai, and Calcutta, that is Kolkata nowadays. So basically, they were able to establish three presidencies town in India. Now, later we will see. Next is the Dutch. Dutch. Now, who were the Dutch? The Dutch were the people, those who belong to Netherlands. The people, those who belong to Netherlands are Dutch. By the early 17th century, after the Britishers, the Dutch too explored India for the possibilities of trade. They also followed the same path and they reached to the Indian Ocean for the trading purposes. They were successful in establishing their port at Surat, Ahmedabad, Broach, Nagapatnam, and Masulipatam. But they were not that much interested in trading to India, so that is why they were interested in Far East. That is why they established their colonial empire in Java and Indonesia to other countries. Now, look at the places. Now, next we are going to learn about the French or the France. The French East India Company, we will learn about that. You can see that French sphere of influence during the 18th century. The green area that is covered, that was the area that was under the France or the French trading company at that time. French possessions 18th century. You can see that French were able to possess all those places and French settlement after 1850. So, students, I want to tell you this, that French and British East India Company, the French East India Company and the English East India Company, both of them were willing to establish their control over India. This is only results in the struggle for power, because now European countries, or we can say that many European country is willing to rule or to trade with India. So by the time the first English ships sailed down the west coast of Africa around the Cape of Good Hope and crossed the Indian Ocean, the Portuguese had already established their presence in the western coast of India and had their base in Goa. So basically, it was only the things that all of them were already established. Firstly, the Portuguese came, then the Britishers came, then the Dutch came, and then the French came. We will learn about French first. The last European people who arrived to India were the French. The French East India Company was formed in 1664 AD during the reign of King Louis XIV to trade with India. In 1668, the French established their first factory at Surat, and in 1669 they were able to establish their factory at Masulipatam also. I will explain you this, that the at that time the governor of French East India Company was Dupleix. When Dupleix became the governor of French East India Company, at that time Robert Clive was the governor of the English East India Company. Now both of these companies came under power struggle with each other, but after that also French East India Company was successful in establishing its trading center at Pondicherry, that is Puducherry nowadays, which eventually became the chief French settlement in India. So, students, now we have learned about all the four powers in India, yeah, all the four European powers in India. The problem was that all the companies, all the companies were interested in buying the same things. The fine qualities of cotton and silk produced in India had a big market in Europe. The cotton and silk were in great demand in all over European countries. Pepper, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon too were in great demand. Competition amongst the European companies inevitably pushed up the prices at which these goods could be purchased. Now, the things were selling in Indian markets and all of them want to purchase. All four countries were interested for purchasing the goods. So this resulted in the increasing price of the goods. Now, the only way, as the price of the goods started increasing in India, and so the profit of the companies started reducing. The only way the trading companies could flourish was by eliminating rival competitors. Now, every company was ready to eliminate its rival competitors. The urge to secure markets, therefore, led to fierce battles between the trading companies. This resulted between battles among the trading companies. Through the 17th and the 18th century, they regularly sank each other's ship. Now, how they used to revolt or how they used to eliminate? They used to stop each other's ship, they used to block the routes, and they used to prevented rival ships from moving with supplies of goods. What they used to do, they started blocking the route of the other companies. ships. Trade was carried on with arms and trading posts were protected through fortification. Now, trade was carrying with the help of armies. Army was there to protect the trading companies. And now the traders started protecting their area by fortification. We have learned earlier also what is fortification. Fortification means to surround the particular area with walls all around. So this was only this effort to fortify settlements and carry on profitable trade also led to intense conflict with local rulers. Now these foreign powers, since they were controlling the Indian areas and they started fortifying it, the regional rulers of India also started up opposing them, and this result in the conflict between the regional rulers also and between the trading companies also. So what was the result? The trading companies started fighting among themselves, all the four trading companies, and the trading companies were having conflict with the regional rulers also. The company therefore found it difficult to separate trade from politics. Now it become difficult for the companies to separate trade from the politics. That only result in the Carnatic Wars. So as I have explained you that at that time the two main powerful countries, that were the Britishers and the French, they were only able to establish their control over India. So this result in Carnatic Wars. Carnatic Wars means these was a series of military conflicts in the middle of 18th century between English East India Company and French East India Company. This is known as Carnatic Wars because it was fought in the region of Carnatic. You can see the region of Carnatic here. The Carnatic region is this wala part. This is the Carnatic region. Okay, it is today, it is presently, it is in Andhra Pradesh according to today's map. Earlier it was in Tamil Nadu. So the Carnatic region means is a region of peninsula, that is South India, lying between the Eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal in the erstwhile Madras Presidency. Earlier it was in Madras Presidency and in the modern Indian state of Tamil Nadu and southern Andhra Pradesh during the British era. So nowadays it is in Tamil Nadu. So what was Carnatic Wars? It was a series of wars or the conflicts that was took place between the rulers, or we can say that the French East India Company and English East India Company. So basically Carnatic Wars is not given that much in your portion. It you will learn in class 11th or 12th about, if you are going to study history in class 11th or 12th, you will learn about this. But basically you have to know that this Carnatic War was fought between the time of 1744 to 1763. This war was fought between 1744 to 1763 between the French East India Company and English East India Company at that time, because both of them want to establish their political control over India. So between 1744 to 1763, a series of three wars were fought between the English East India Company and the French East India Company. This war was known as Carnatic War because these wars took place in the Carnatic region of the South India. These wars reflected the diplomatic and military struggle between the French East India Company and the English East India Company. So the coastal Carnatic region, that was a dependency of Hyderabad, became the battleground of this struggle. So the first war of this one, Carnatic, took place in 1746. What happened at the time in the contemporary world was, in 1740, the War of Austrian Succession broke out in Europe. In Europe, Austria, for successing Austria was a country, war was going on. In 1744, Great Britain was also drawn into the war. In that, Great Britain also started struggling, but Great Britain was against the French power in that struggle. So French and Britain became what? Opposition in that war. Now what was going on in India at that time? Both the trading companies maintained cordial relation in India. Both of were having, matlab they were ruling according, or they were busy in their trade work. Although French company officials ordered to avoid conflicts. They were ordered that you should avoid conflict with the British East India Company, but Britishers were not ready. They were continuously indulging themselves among conflicts with the French powers. French called for backup from as Warfield. Now, in July 1746, the French the war started. The British captured some French ships. They were supported by Nawab of Carnatic. Who were supporting Britishers? That Nawab of Carnatic region. The French under the governor Dupleix. Dupleix was the governor of French East India Company at that time. French were under the Dupleix, responded by capturing Fort St. George in Madras. Fort, Fort St. George was the region of Britishers, and Dupleix captured that region because Britishers captured some French ships. Meanwhile, the War of Austrian Succession ended in Europe, and during this time only, when all this was going on in India, the Austrian succession war came to up an end. With this, the First Carnatic War also came to an end, and due to this only, Carnatic War was also came to an end. So on 21st September 1746, the French captured the British outpost at Madras. Some ships they captured. Now, La Bourdonnais, the governor of army of the French, had promised to return Madras to the English, but Dupleix withdrew that promise and won to give Madras to Anwaruddin after the capture. Now, overall, the thing is this, that when the War of Austria ended, at that time only, this First Carnatic War was also ended. This result in one treaty. The name of that treaty was Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, that took place in 1748. According to the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, Madras was given back to British in exchange for French fortress of Louisbourg in North America. What happened according to Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle? Madras was returned to British. Since French occupied Madras, Saint George Cook occupies, they have occupied it. So it returned to Britishers, but Britishers in exchange, they have controlled the French fortress of Louisbourg in North America. So this was the result of the First Carnatic War. Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle that took place in 1748. After this, the war ended. Now, what exactly happened? The war started in 1746. When the war started, when the British captured some French ship. In against to that, what they did, what French did, French occupied Madras. When the Austrian Succession War ended in Europe, at that time only in 1748, Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle took place, and according to that treaty, Madras would return to Britishers in exchange for the French fortress of Louisbourg in North America. Now, the Second Carnatic War again started after the death of the rulers of both Carnatic and Hyderabad. When the rulers of Carnatic region and Hyderabad died, that second war started in 1749 only. In the war of succession that broke out, now Carnatic and Hyderabad were without rulers. Now both France, the French power, and the English East India Company, both of them at that time war of succession was going on. The French sided with opposite groups in Carnatic and Hyderabad. At the outset, the French succeeded in murdering their opponents and placing their supporters on the thrones. What happened? French was successful for establishing the opponents on the throne of Carnatic or Hyderabad. However, the British troops soon captured Arcot in 1751. At that time, the governor of British East India Company was Clive. Clive's success led to additional victories for the British, the Nizam and Arcot allies. The war ended with the Treaty of Pondicherry signed in 1754. Now look here what exactly happened. At that time, in India, on one side was एक साइड में, वन साइड there was नासिर जंग and on the other side there was चंदा साहिब. ठीक है. तो the Nizam and Muhammad Ali supported by English. The one side, the Nasir Jung was supported by the English and the Chand Sahib was supported by the Britishers. Now, all of them wanted to become the Nawab of Arcot. Chand Sahib was also willing to become the Nawab of Arcot, and Nasir Jung was also willing to become the Nawab of Arcot. What happened? Muzaffar Jung and Chand Sahib were able to capture Arcot. Matlab, those who were with the French, they were able to capture Arcot. While Nasir Jung subsequently death allowed Muzaffar Jung to take control of Hyderabad. Nasir Jung died here. Muzaffar's reign was short and he was soon killed, and Salabat Jung became Nizam. After that, this Muzaffar Jung was very soon he was shot dead. In 1751, the British troops led by Robert Clive marched to capture Arcot and successfully defend it. Again, Britishers marched towards Arcot, and when the rulers of Arcot were died, then Britishers overpowered Arcot. Now, after this, the Treaty of Pondicherry took place in 1754. According to this treaty, the Treaty of Pondicherry was signed in 1754, bringing an end to the Second Carnatic War. It was agreed and signed in the French settlement of Puducherry or Pondicherry in French India. As I've explained you earlier, that French East India Company has its center at Pondicherry, and that only became their center. So, Treaty of Pondicherry took place. The favored British candidate Muhammad Ali Khan Walajan was recognized as the Nawab of the Carnatic, and after this only the one who favored whom the Britishers were favoring, they become the rulers of Carnatic at that time. Nextly, it is written here, the French leader's Dupleix was asked to return to France. The directors of French East India Company were dissatisfied with Dupleix's political ambitions, which had led to immense financial loss to France. In 1754, Charles Godeau replaced Dupleix. The new general came to India, the new governor of French East India Company came to India. Now, what happened? Third Carnatic War took place in 1756 till 1763. 7 years wars was a global war fought between 1756 till 1763. This war took place or was 7 year long. It involved all five European great powers. The outbreak of the 7 Year War in Europe in 1756 led to a fresh conflict between the French and the British forces in India, leading to the Third Carnatic War. The British forces captured the French settlement of Chandarnagar. The French settlement of Chandarnagar was captured by Britishers. They captured it in 1757. The Britishers captured it. Here in South, the Britishers successfully defended the Madras, and they took Madras under their control. Sir Eyre could decisively defeat the French commander at the Battle of Wandiwash in 1760. Battle of Wandiwash took place in 1760. The war concluded with the signing of the 1763, that was Treaty of Paris, which returned Chandarnagar and Pondicherry to France and allowed the French to have factories in India. So it is understood, in the Third Carnatic War, Treaty of Paris took place after the Battle of Wandiwash. Now I will explain you that what was the Battle of Wandiwash that took place in 1760. The French army under the commandship of Count de Lelys, burdened by a lack of naval support and funds, they attempted to regain the fort of Wandiwash, that is in Tamil Nadu. There is a place Vandavasi in Tamil Nadu. But he was attacked by the then governor of British Army, Sir Eyre Coote, and was decisively defeated. The French were then restricted to Pondicherry, where they surrendered on 22nd January 1760. The French capital of Pondicherry fell to the British in 1761. So, what was the result of the Wandiwash, the War of Wandiwash? That Pondicherry came into the power of Britishers. Now, after that, the Treaty of Paris took place in 1763. The Treaty of Paris returned Chandanagar and Pondicherry to France and allowed the French to have factories in India, but it forbade French traders for administering them. They can have now the result of the Third Carnatic War was this, that the French were allowed to build their factories or they are allowed to trade from there, but they are not having the right to administer those factories. The French agreed to support British client governments, thus ending the French ambitions of an Indian empire and making the British the dominant foreign power in India. So this is whole about Carnatic Wars. This you will be able to understand more better in senior classes. But this much only you have to know, that Carnatic War was the series of three battles that took place from the year 1744 till 1763 between English East India Company and French East India Company in the region of Carnatic, that is in South India. The result of this battle was that the Britishers won and they became the dominant foreign power in India. So this is all for today, students. I will come soon with the second part of this video. Till then, please watch the video carefully, and please, while listening to the video of Carnatic Wars, take your books with yourself so that you can relate it with your books. Thank you, students.